I'm KyleneTerhune, and this is Lisa Watkins. Hello, Lisa. I'm so excited that you're here today. I'm wearing your shirt that you gave
Yay!
me when I completed the 3 months with you. So it's just super cute. It fits so well, and she made this, you guys. I thought that was so nice. So I thought I would wear it for our video today. But I have a super fun announcement for everybody. For those of you who follow me on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or wherever you are on Facebook, I just dropped the What's Next course, and I'm so excited. So for those of you who maybe don't know me very well, I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. So I have a history of working with clients in the functional medicine space. And then when I went through betrayal, when I discovered that my husband was a sex addict, I dove into how trauma impacts your body and how it affects your health. And then I went through certifications to learn emotional processing and trauma processing tools. So now I work with women one-on-one to help their physical, mental, and emotional health as they recover through betrayal trauma. So I've been doing that one-on-one with women for about the past 6 months, and I'm so excited to offer the What's Next course because it's really for women who either just discovered betrayal in their relationship or they discovered it a long time ago, but they didn't have the tools or resources to do anything about it. So then a lot of times what happens is you discover it, you don't know what to do, and then 3 years later you find out again that it's happening and it never stopped. So the What's Next course is really designed to give you all the tools and resources you need for the first 3 to 6 months, the actions you can take. And this is going to be perfect if you and your husband are willing to jump into recovery, or if you kind of want to know what the steps are so you can figure out, is he willing to do all the steps to recovery? And you'll find out very quickly as you go through this course, based on his responses, if he is working towards recovery with you or if he is choosing his addiction. And so it's got all the steps, tools, and resources in there to get you started. And I will drop the link below, but if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm really excited to offer this, and I can't wait to support you on your journey. So without further ado, I'm excited to have Lisa here today. Lisa is a functional medicine specialist, and I just worked with Lisa because every doctor needs a doctor, every coach needs a coach, and every functional medicine practitioner needs a functional medicine practitioner, right? I hate working on myself. Like, it's not fun. Nobody wants to do this, right? Like, it's
So
like
true.
when you're looking at yourself, you're like, why am I so complicated, right?
Yeah.
So today, we are going to talk about how stress impacts the body, which I think is so important to talk about in this group because trauma and betrayal just plays such a heavy role in our physical health over time. And we want to talk about emotions and trauma getting stuck in the body, which again, is so important because if it's not getting out of the body and it's getting stuck over time, it's going to cause physical problems. And then maybe we'll touch on some nutrients and some steps and some tools and stuff that that Lisa does with her clients that support your body. So welcome, Lisa. I'm so happy to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So these are some things that I absolutely love to talk about. So I'm hoping that I don't derail myself or get off into the weeds.
Oh, that's all
Um,
right. We like to have just fluid, totally chill conversations here. So talk about whatever inspires you.
Awesome. Okay. So again, my background is in as a functional medicine practitioner. I am formally trained as a mental health nurse practitioner. So stress, anxiety, all this stuff just kind of falls into a lot of the things that I've done for quite a few years. And
Okay.
stress is one of the things that comes up all of the time. I don't know that if there are humans that are not stressed. I mean, I think everyone has some form of stress. And trauma as well. We hear about actual trauma, which is, I think, more than what being stressed about having to run to the grocery store and take care of all your daily tasks. Um, and
Yeah.
so, right? And I'm kind of the same thing as you too, Kylene. I'm certified in the emotion code, which is an energy modality that looks very specifically at emotions. And so and this was like a game changer in my mental health practice because a lot of times people come in and they don't understand what went on or how they got to where they're at. And so it's really hard to kind of make your way through that. And so using energy work and the emotion code, you learn how, as Kylene was saying, we have experiences in our lives. It can literally be that you peed your pants in the second grade, and that is an emotion that can get trapped in the body, like Kylene
Like
was
you
saying.
feel like embarrassment or shame when you're like 6 and that happens and you don't know the words to talk about it and you don't know how to process that, and then it's just that's now the representation of embarrassment and shame for you.
Mhm. And it continues to create triggers. And like she said, it continues to create other problems in your life where you compensate or cope not in the best way. So there's maladaptive coping mechanisms that end up happening, but we don't process these things because of that sense of overwhelm at the time. And so it would be really nice if when we were young kids, we were taught how to process or at least be able to talk about some of the emotions that we were feeling. But most of us don't grow up in those kinds of environments. So we have a bazillion trapped emotions in our bodies just from all these maybe smaller, seems to be smaller things in our lives, and they continue to accumulate. And so when I do energy work on people and we work at identifying these emotions and releasing them, it is incredible how often people will not even recall that something happened to them at a certain age. And I'll share a quick story because I saw a 16-year-old girl, and I had seen her for probably like 10 sessions. And she's 16. She was beautiful. She was a straight A student. I mean, she was like the picture of the girl that has it all going. She was miserable. She had suicidal thinking almost every single day, but she had this incredible smile on her face every single day. So she came to me because her mom was worried about her. Thank goodness her mom was able to pick up on it. And I saw her for, like I said, 10 sessions, and we'd be releasing specific emotions that were trapped when she was at about age 11, age 11, age 11. It just kept coming up. She couldn't figure out anything that happened at age 11. Her mom couldn't figure out anything that happened at 11. Her sister couldn't figure it out. And so one day, it was maybe the 11th session, I don't know. An emotion came up and we cleared it, and she instantly started crying. And she said, I finally remember what happened. Like, it took all of this time. It was months. And her dad beat her up on a cruise ship. They were on vacation. I mean, this is how she had stuffed this memory. You're like, how can you not, pull that up when we're talking about age 11?
Well, because your brain protects you, right? And
Mhm.
so
It was
it took
locked
that
away.
period of time for her brain and body to feel safe, because it will not bring up a memory unless it's safe to process it.
Yep.
So you were
Yep.
helping to get to that place where you were taking enough of the weight off that it then felt like it was okay to process it. That's huge. Wow.
Yeah, it was huge for her, and it literally did change her life that day. She was much stronger. She cried about it, and we released it, and she was kind of able to move on. She's pretty fantastic now. She's, I think, in med school now. But so that's kind of how these trapped emotions work. Like, and you're like, that's a pretty big deal. How do you like not remember that? But the body will protect you. Yes, the body and the brain will protect you for sure.
And a lot of people have, like, when you talk to them, they'll say, I don't remember a lot of my childhood. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm pretty sure you had a lot of trauma in your childhood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'll do timeline work. So I have people get connected to their timeline. And if they look at their timeline and see a lot of black spots, it's the same thing. It's like your
Yeah.
brain has blocked out portions of your life because of trauma, because it's unsafe at this point to remember, probably because in those moments you didn't have the tools and resources, and maybe now you still don't. So it's like, that's what we're doing, right? Like, we're giving you the tools and resources so that you can begin processing those in a safe way,
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy way, to be able to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about the body code and the emotion code is that a lot of therapy techniques require that you like remember and that you kind of re-experience them in order to be able to move through them. And that's what I love about the emotion code and the body code is that you do not have to do that. We can literally release those. And I love that. And so as we talk about the stress that this causes on the body, it triggers the fight or flight system, which I think most people are aware of. Fight or flight. That is a sympathetic nervous system function. And so that can be very damaging to the body. The sympathetic nervous system, when activated, is like your emergency response system. And so when that gets activated, it literally pulls most of the resources from the body. And so there are body systems that literally have no resources. They shunt resources from the digestive system, and it shunts resources from the reproductive system. Two of the biggies, especially if we're talking about women that come in that are systems that they're sure it's their hormones and they're sure that something else is just not right. Digestive issues are just rampant in so many people. And I believe that a lot of this has to do with longstanding stress, not necessarily trauma, but just stress in life because of the way most of us live our lives these days. And so the biggest one that I will talk about, well, the reproductive system is a big deal because a lot of women will notice, and especially when they get as old as I am, I'm in my late 50s, and it's like you start to wonder, like, where is the estrogen and where is the progesterone and am I having, my face is drying up. And these are issues because the body's not making estrogen. It has to shut that system down because it doesn't have enough resources to do all of the things. And so we'll notice that. But the big one I like to start with, because I always start with digestion, is the whole digestive, the whole GI system. Resources are literally shunted from there. We don't have the acids and the enzymes. They are not getting produced. The movement through the small intestine also gets slowed down. The body thinks you're in an emergency phase. It doesn't worry about digesting food right now. It thinks that you're going to get attacked by a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sending resources to other places of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have trouble with digestion, and like I said, a lot of people do, we will see all kinds of other issues in the body where we're not getting, like as Kylie was saying, we're not getting the nutrients that we need. The body is not able to break down and assimilate nutrients from the foods that we're eating. And then it slows down all of digestion. And I always like to talk about, we are eating food. So here's that process. You eat food, we chew it up, comes down into the stomach. Well, the stomach doesn't have the enzymes and the acid to break up this food. All these systems have been literally almost shut down. And so the food will sit in the stomach for long periods of time, waiting to reach just that exact formula before it can be released down and into the small bowel. Well, it putrefies and it rots sitting in the stomach because it's there for so long in this warm, dark, moist environment. And I know then this moves into the small bowel. Well, along with it comes all that fermented gas, all these toxins that come along from all those other processes. And then women will have issues of the bloating, the constipation, maybe even diarrhea. But we also are creating and making changes to what's happening in that microbiome in terms of it's not always necessarily a healthy situation there. So then we have things like bacterial overgrowth. We've got mold, we've got fungus, things that start to grow in the digestive tract, which is doing us no good. And then it triggers a lot of other things. We have more anxiety related to a lot of these fungal and bacterial infections that happen in the GI tract. That GI tract is responsible for creating most of the neurotransmitters that help us
Yeah.
regulate our mood, right?
I think that's like one of the biggest things, like you just were mentioning. So brain fog, fatigue, and anxiety are huge with betrayal trauma. Like, I don't think you can get through it without experiencing those those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and when it's like the combination of the stress impacting your gut, and then the imbalance that then occurs with the gut messing with your neurotransmitters and impacting the health of your brain. And you have that cycle then, and it's like, okay, well, how can we support this? Because the stress is going to continue for a period of time. So then it's like, let's focus on building up our body as much as we can. And I think a lot of people don't know that your neurotransmitters like are super impacted by the health of your gut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
70 to 80% of your neurotransmitters, and you'll hear different numbers. I've even heard up to 90% of them are made in the digestive tract. So it's super important. So then we don't have those, and we have all this other stuff that's like anxiety is created from candida and from some different funguses. But in addition, we also have that on top from all the things that are happening in our lives. And now we have a decreased ability to cope, to manage stress and anxiety, where we're like, well, we used to be able to handle this, but we all kind of reach this tipping point as these things kind of just start to accumulate and pile on top of each other. And so the more we can do to kind of help this digestive system, and this is totally Kylene's area too, and I've been preach for a really long time, is that we have to pay attention to what's happening in the gut. So if we talk about just even a couple things that you can do with regards to that while we're waiting to heal. I mean, I'm still of the think my functional medicine education has told us that you have to start from the beginning. And so I'm always like, well, what was the beginning point? Well, it was the anxiety, or it was the stressor, is what I'm saying. So we have to come back to the stressor. How are we going to manage the stressor, which is just a small part of it? And so some of the things that are helpful are, and I know Kylene's probably got a whole pocket full of little tips and tricks, but easy things that don't become so they don't become overwhelming, because we already have an overwhelmed person, is even just doing simple things like just little meditations. That was something that helped me. I moved through a somewhat difficult divorce years ago, and it was probably the worst time in my life. And so it's finding a way to help yourself to feel okay, because there's a lot of guilt and shame and all this awfulness that comes with the fact that you failed, or things just aren't, you can't cope with things. We continue to make daily mistakes in things that we do, and we're just doing the best that we can. And so meditate, like a quick little short meditations are really nice. Gratitude is super powerful for me, and also a very high frequency energy, which can really shift your mood. And we always say you can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. You can't be depressed and grateful. So if you can pull in gratitude with just, I mean, literally just saying the word will change the frequency of your body. And that just kind of helps bring a bit of calm to that. Some people can feel gratitude, like you can see it, you can feel it, you can remember that you actually experienced it at one time, and you can pull it in. Super, super simple. I do it when I'm driving, like if I'm at a stoplight and I'm just sitting there. It's just a cue to me. And the other thing I tell people too is that when I click my seatbelt in when I'm in the car, that's a trigger to me for gratitude right away. So most of the time, yeah. Yeah. Or even at work when I leave my chair to go to the bathroom, and I'm in gratitude as I'm walking. Otherwise, what am I doing? I'm worrying about something or thinking about something else as I'm walking down the hallway.
So I love this because in October I went to a conference and Joe Dispenza was there. So like king guru of meditation, right? And I was like, I am committing to 365 days of meditation. And I have been like 2 months into this. I'm doing it every single day, but I need to get better about it, because sometimes I will forget until I go to bed, and then it's like right before I go to sleep. And I'd rather do it during the day or when I'm awake, because then I can focus on different things, like different goals with it. And so what I love about what you're saying here is, someone might say, well, how can I practice gratitude when everything in my life is falling apart? But the thing about meditation is that we get to create our reality and create the vision of our future and feel what that feels like before it happens. And you have to hold on to the belief and the vision of what that future looks like, because that's what you're moving towards as you move through the pain. So whether that's staying with your partner and moving through it because you're recovering together and you know that the process you're going through is worth it, or you're going through a divorce and you want to hold this vision that safety and autonomy and all this is still available for you, and a new life and a safe, happy life is available for you. It's really a couple things. It's getting into that state of visualization and gratitude of the future and feeling what that feels like now. And it's also getting your body into a place of parasympathetic, like Lisa was just talking about how bad sympathetic is, and activating your fight or flight. When you meditate and you visualize and you practice gratitude, it gets your body into the parasympathetic, and that's the place that your body begins healing. And so that's huge for people that are going through trauma, to intentionally and purposefully take time to get their nervous system in that place, so that you give your body a breath, and that's your ability, that's your opportunity to provide safety for your body when maybe the things in your life right now are not providing that for you. I think that's a great tip.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And your point is well taken, that some people in the clinic, I'll hear that all the time, but my life sucks. Like, I don't really have anything to be grateful for. Everything is awful. Like, people literally can't find one thing. And so, I mean, literally sometimes it is the fact that you have a toothbrush, you have a bed, you have a pillow, you have a place to stay. And you have to be able to kind of break that down and find that a feeling, because that's how bad it feels at the time for a lot of folks. And I think the first couple times that happened to me, when we were having a conversation about it, I was almost alarmed that someone couldn't pull something to be grateful for. I got a pair of tennis shoes. Like, I showed up with a winter coat on today. Like, any of those kinds of things. And that's like a starting point. I mean, obviously I'm going to stay there because bigger and more meaningful things are going to start to happen as you change, like Kylie was talking about. You're changing your own frequency, and the frequency and the vibe that you put out is what you get back. And
Yeah.
so if you have this kind of just kind of self-loathing, oh my gosh, kind of a feeling every day, we just have to remember that what we're thinking about is what we bring about. I think Dr. Joe says that all the time too. What you think about, you bring about. And we always kind of think of it as this like boomerang where you put it out and it's going to come back to you. So, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be long. You literally can wake up in the morning and just think of one or two things that you're grateful for and move on. Sometimes we'll have people do it when they brush their teeth, because most of us are
I
standing
like
there
that
for
too, because you're talking about the click or the brushing. Those are anchors. So those are like you're anchoring it in when you associate it with something that you do on a regular basis. It's a reminder for you. That can be really helpful too. Like if someone has like ADD or like, they are feeling really overwhelmed and trying to add something new, like associate it and attach it with something that that's already a habit.
Yep, yep. And I'll always tell them too, if you are forgetting up front, because you're used to brushing your teeth, like Dr. Joe will talk about that, you're brushing your teeth, it's the same thing you do every day. Sometimes you have to put I'll tell them, put a smiley face, a sticky with a smiley face on the mirror.
Yeah.
That's your cue to do something different. Or in your car, a little smiley face on the rearview mirror. Mine was, I had a St. Christopher medal that was on my keychain. That thing was almost rubbed smooth by the time I got through that process. But it was always something, because how many times a day did I touch my keys at that point? And so it was something that kind of always was able to bring me back. And it brings a lot of comfort for me too at that point too, because it literally would bring me to a more very peaceful place. And the more you do it, the better it feels. And so it can be something that simple. And yes, it will bring you to parasympathetic. That was the other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, was sympathetic is that rest and digest. And so we know that that is going to help with a lot of things. If we can somehow find balance between those two systems. There's also the enteric nervous system, which is the nervous system that lines the GI tract. And so that's that system that also gets activated. And we have all these GI problems. Some people will, like I said, will have diarrhea. Some people are constipated. And I always think of it as remembering that this is a muscle. And if you're tense and your other muscles are tight, the same thing happens in that digestive muscle, if you will. And so a lot of people will have constipation, and that's pretty uncomfortable. And again, it's going to lead to a lot of other problems. Fungus, mold, parasites love that.
I like how you sort of said this in other words, but I love the idea that I'm learning more and more when I learned about how trauma impacts the body and all this kind of stuff, that literally your physical health, like on a cellular level, is really indicative and reflective of, it's like a mirror of your emotional health and well-being. I find that absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. So like if you're constipated, you're probably emotionally constipated. Mm-hmm. If your cells are very unhealthy and they're stiff and rigid, you're probably stiff and rigid and inflexible, right? Like it's absolutely fascinating to me how one can cause the other and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it triggers that response in our body. But it just blows my mind, like how it's so, and the more you learn about it, you're like, what?
And you see it, you can see it clinically then, you can see it as you're working with people and the complaints that they have. Like you almost always know that there's something going on emotionally. And I mean, really, honestly, who doesn't have something going on emotionally at some point, right?
Well, like you said, we were never taught, right? Like I think the generation preceding us was very much like under the rug it goes, or, like, let's not talk about this, it's embarrassing, or like sex is hush hush, like, either, or we talk about it in a shameful way. And so there's a lot of stuff that we just like didn't know how to talk to our parents about, or if we tried, it wasn't really an open conversation. And so then like as adults, we're kind of stuck with this stuff from childhood that's like, I just didn't have the words to process that or the knowledge of how to process that.
Mm-hmm. So true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so those behaviors they're very normalized. Mm-hmm. And so when we become parents,
almost glorified sometimes.
Yeah. You got to be strong. Yeah. Stop your crying. Yeah. Yeah. So parasympathetic, I really like too, because it'll move us into this healing state. And so one of the things that I'll use early on as well, because I in my practice, I practice holistically. I don't write prescriptions any longer for mental health issues. We stay focused on starting with nutrition, use some meditation, yoga. But the other thing, and supplementation. So the other thing that I will look at starting to help people move that initial needle to find some better coping skills is magnesium. I am like anybody that knows me, I feel like it's almost the answer for everything.
I
I
know, me
always,
too. I love it. It's the
I'm like,
magic supplement.
yep, it's either magnesium, like that's my like thing I'll say, or else it's that's your liver. There's something wrong with your liver. Like those are like my two most famous little sayings. But magnesium, it has been very helpful just to help to gain some control, because magnesium helps to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is work that comes from Dr. Nick Gonzalez, who did a lot of work in the cancer industry. And then we translated this into mental health. And he was able to figure out parasympathetic dominant and sympathetic dominant individuals had certain needs supplement wise as well as nutritionally. And it was really, he had this very magical formula. But magnesium is one that will stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. So it helps bring a little bit of control, because remember, we want balance. And if our sympathetic nervous system is jacked up and it is doing all of the things, we have got to help the body to find some balance. Even before we're able to master this gratitude and meditation and some of that, because it takes a lot of effort. And sometimes, we don't have the energy to do it. We're like still just kind of trying to fight through the day.
Right.
So I use, in my practice, I use a supplement that it's in an isotonic form. So I'm pretty very specific about this one, because we already have digestive issues. We already know that people are not digesting. You're not going to digest a pill. So I always tell people, don't take a magnesium pill. Sometimes magnesium capsules are okay. People can actually break them down. But this one that I use is an isotonic. So it's a powder. That an isotonic means the same tone and pressure as your blood, sweat, and tears. So it requires no digestion. The nutrients are not damaged by the gastric juices, and it moves very quickly within about 5 to 7 minutes out of the stomach, because the body very quickly recognizes it as the same and sends it into the small bowel. And then it is processed there. But it also then is transported via a sugar molecule or fructose molecule to the bloodstream within 7 to 10 minutes. I use this in the clinic, and people that are like hysterical at the beginning or like sobbing and can't even process a thought or say a word will be better by the end of the session. I mean, it's not pure calm, but it at least brings rationalization in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so so magnesium is in, and it doesn't have to be this form. I'm just saying, this to me has been, people that see me, this is like, it's got to be this one. This is the magic here. And we'll see things change. Like I said, you can see it day one. You can see it. People use it for sleep. We use it for anxiety. And so we want to balance those two nervous systems so that we can start to be more in control of the things that just keep coming at us every day, all day. And when you're dealing with these situations, the traumas that come with sexual betrayal and sex addiction, there is like crazy stuff coming at you all day long that you have to be ready to handle. I mean, what are you going to do with it? And if you already are having trouble just handling the grocery list and you can't find the tomato soup aisle, I mean, how are you going to handle a relapse from your husband? So these things can actually calm it down a bit so you can make better decisions and be able to kind of move through just the things that happen every day. And we want to make sure that we're keeping your body healthy as you're moving through these. And I'm sure Kyleen would agree that nutrition and digestion, this whole GI thing that we just were chattering about here, is one of the most important things. Like that is the way we're going to find balance in the body.
I really feel like if you have an unhealthy body going into betrayal, it's going to make it, oh my gosh, so much harder. And so I can't overstate really the impact that I think nutrition has on your ability to move through this in a healthy way. And I see that with, my husband, because me being a functional medicine practitioner, focusing so much on diet and all, we already had that lockdown in our house when this came out. And then as soon as I started learning about it, I did research on addiction and withdrawal and brain support and all this kind of stuff. And I immediately put him on a supplemental regimen to help his brain. And then we did, extra functional medicine, biohacking stuff. Like I did NADIV therapy for him to help his brain and like all this kind of stuff. And I really, really feel like that helped him tremendously go through the first 3 months or so successfully.
Wow.
And helping his brain. And so I think having that support, and then for the betrayal side, like you're saying, I mean, when you're in sympathetic and getting these threats thrown at you with discovery and arguments and questions, all this kind of stuff. I mean, magnesium's used in what is it now? 700 or 800 different ways in your body. So it's like one of these primary nutrients. It's like anything that happens in your body. If you work out, if you cry, if you are stressed, if you're tired one day, like it's using up your magnesium, right? So you go through something as intense as betrayal, it is gobbling that up. And then that's going to impact your muscles and your ability to recover and your sleep and your energy and like literally everything. So I think that's a really good tip. And I do talk about that in one of my modules about understanding the brain, because I go through like understanding what happens in an addict brain and then specific nutraceuticals, like how you can support it too, because I do think that's really important. And I saw that too, like with a friend of mine whose husband was going through this process, and this was years into it, and he went gluten-free, and huge difference, like a world of difference. So I think sometimes those changes, because it impacts like the inflammation in your brain, which addiction causes inflammation and all this kind of stuff, that when you can bring these things in, it's just going to make it so much easier for both of you.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you make too, that nutrition and supplementation is important for both parties.
Yeah.
And even because was literally just thinking about it from the point of the person with this trauma, and certain foods are going to trigger more anxiety. And so I always talk about like low blood sugar and high blood sugar symptoms literally parallel anxiety. And so you got to make sure that you're eating good food so that blood sugar is regulated, so that the body isn't, again, because blood sugar is rising and falling, that we're not triggering yet another stressor on the adrenal system, which just is because you didn't eat breakfast today, or you didn't eat lunch, or you had a donut for breakfast. And so we want to make sure that blood sugar also, that's the other thing I preach about all the time, is regulated. So you're eating good quality foods. You're eating lots of vegetables, lots of proteins, lots of fruits, rather than eating.
Harder when you're stressed to do that too, because stress impacts your insulin so much. Like I remember wearing a CGM last year, and I was like, what is going on with my blood sugar? Because it was all over the place. And I don't have blood sugar issues, but I think it was just the stress. And I wore it again, not too long ago, maybe a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, look at that. My blood sugar is amazing now. Like, so I had to put effort during that time. Nutritionally, like I had to really watch.
Yeah. And stress will definitely trigger a rise in blood sugar. And people that wear the continuous glucose monitors will literally see it. There was a friend of mine that wears one, and he's a cop. So like, there's not a lot that seriously like stresses him out, but something happened where he was in a store, and he had his monitor on, and something happened. And I don't know if it was a threat at the grocery store or whatever, but he activated himself because he's a cop and he was off duty, and he went to take care of this issue that was happening. And later he looked at his monitor and he could see it. It literally shot up. It was crazy. And so for him to have realized that, because I keep telling them, a lot of these people that are in these industries, like even our soldiers or our cops, our firemen, their bodies are almost, and I think Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this, they get so addicted to just this adrenaline rush. And it's the same thing that happens when we get addicted to some of these feelings and these sensations related to the things that we go through. And we normalize it because it's the only way we've been able to survive. And we see that with people that have lived in long periods of time of emotional abuse or even physical abuse. We see it in our kids, kind of the way they are able to handle or not handle things. So it's a very good point. Yes. Nutrition, supplementation, a little bit of meditation, some movement, get outside, literally hug a tree. I mean,
Literally.
whatever it takes, literally.
Literally.
So
I love that.
I don't know. I hope that is helpful.
Oh my gosh, super helpful. So talk briefly because you're kind of a detox specialist too, and that's kind of what I was working with you for the past 3 months, and I think that was like super cool. So if you want to touch on that a little bit, or like definitely talk about like what you offer and where people can find you and how to connect with you and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super passionate about this detox program that I'm running. It's a 3-month detoxification program. I I knew that detox was important, and I am known to be the lady that loves the liver. And so I have been talking about the liver for years, and knowing that we need to support it, and it's this, exit point for lots of, filtering out lots of junk in the body. And so digging a little deeper, the more we learn, like Kylie, we are like learning all of the time. And so finding ways and realizing the importance of, even just as we were talking about digestion and how these toxins and these fermentation and metabolic waste gets trapped in the body. And if we cannot get rid of it, it stays in the body and starts to create problems. So when we're creating things like candida and yeast starts to form in the gut, these are the perfect places for things like parasites to set up shop. And we all are exposed to parasites. They're in our food, they're in the air, they're in our water, they're in medications, like they're everywhere. And so then we are setting up a new situation to create inflammation and different blockages, so the body's still not going to work great. And there is some scientific evidence out there too that shows that even parasites can create changes in the way that we feel and the way that we think, the decisions that we make.
I mean,
And so
I feel like that would be directly correlated to the fact that they eat your nutrients and cause inflammation in your gut, which we already talked about how that like impacts your neurotransmitters. So I can't imagine how they wouldn't really impact your mood.
totally
You
do.
know?
And it's so funny because you'll learn that their systems are set up to make changes in our bodies to benefit them. So they're set up to shunt the production of neurotransmitters if they happen to be in your gut. And that's where they are. And parasites actually are anywhere in your body. So anyways, I developed this program because I people were getting better, but they're not, it keeps coming back. So that was kind of this waxing and waning of symptoms. Well, like, why does candida keep coming back? Really? And a lot of it is related to the fact that these parasites are still in your body and they are contributing to all of these problems. So the program is a 3-month program. We use supplementation. I use some energy frequency work as well. We enhanced detoxification is always that first step, so that the body is able to eliminate the stuff that we are trying to kill and bind. So we're trying to kill parasites. We target parasites over the full moon because they literally do make changes to the way that we feel, the way we sleep or don't sleep, and the way we feel. We will see lots of emotional, lots of mood things happen over the full moon. And so the program is a little bit educational. There's a certain protocol that we use, and we have seen some fantastic changes in people's health. My focus is mostly people's health. I want you to see people get well. And even though a lot of individuals are eating healthy, they're taking a ton of supplements, they still are sick. They're still bloated. They still have headaches. They still have skin issues. And what is the cause, right? And so some people now have been able to start to move the needle on their health because maybe we're clearing some old yeast, and mold is a really big factor, and mold will create lots of emotional problems
Yes.
in the body, and probably one of the worst from kind of what I'm learning at this point. And not super hard to get rid of if you know what to do, but there is a protocol, there is, things that you need to do. So you can find information. I have a couple websites. One is lisakwatkins.com, Lisak Watkins, Watkins.com. And then the other one is yourfreakyfriend.com. And that's what I refer to myself all the time because I have all these like weird things that people should do. And so one of my friends, she started referring to me as my freaky friend. And so hence freaky friend.
I like
so
it.
Yeah, it's been a great program. I've been doing it myself since about February, and
Awesome.
have seen a lot of changes. I definitely saw better changes once I started focusing on the detoxification component, because initially I was not. And I had a lot of bloating and a lot of headaches. And
Mm.
so, because everything was just getting recycled in the body. And so once I figured
Yeah.
that out and knew that I needed to support the liver and moving things out, it made a huge difference.
Well, what I found fascinating, because I always I love testing and I run my GI maps and my stool testing and all this kind of stuff. And I did not have any parasites to note, right? And so then I was still experiencing some stuff and I was like, well, let me just try this. And I did notice before we started that I had some stuff going on around the full moon. And I was like, okay, so maybe this is the right decision for me, even though nothing is showing up on the labs. And I jumped in and I was like, wow, like that's great. That was just very fascinating to me that it was not showing up and I was still having some symptomology, and that a lot of it seemed to shift and improve during this process. So yes, I do recommend Lisa check her out, and I'll make sure
Yeah,
to
thanks.
put all of your links below for sure. And then do you have anything on Facebook or Instagram, like if people can follow you or?
Yeah, Instagram, Vitamin Freak. I'm Vitamin Freak on Instagram. And then my name, you can find me on Facebook with my name, Lisa Watkins. I have a professional page that has all my like ABCs behind my name, and then just a regular page too. But I just want to add one thing as you were talking about testing,
Yeah.
and because I've been in the biz for a long time too, and I've done testing on people and it doesn't show up. So
Yeah.
learning that testing is very unreliable. One, some of them are inside the cell, so you can't see them on testing, and you have to be able to catch them. And so if you're only doing a one-time stool sample, even sometimes when you're doing an all-day sampling, you're still not going to see them. So we have to make the assumption that everyone has parasites, and many of the experts have said if you have a pulse, you have parasites.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. I think a lot of people are like, "Well, I have to go, on vacation and drink the water or something." It's like, no, you really don't. Like,
You
pretty
can do
much,
it in the United States.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
here too.
You can live here, and yep. You can drink tap water, and yeah, you're probably gonna have them too. And I mean, we are around other people and animals and pets and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just the same as anything else. Everybody can get it. So
Yeah, and it's
thank you.
just like, yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and sharing all of this. It was really, really helpful. And yeah, I've just loved working with you and loved talking with you today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great to be able to visit and share all the things. You can tell how passionate I get. I get all excited.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.